In August 2023, leaders from Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa stood shoulder to shoulder in Johannesburg. They were there to expand a coalition designed to build an alternative to the Western-led financial system. Meanwhile, in the Pacific, the balance of hard power is shifting. A decade ago, the Chinese Navy overtook the United States Navy in the sheer number of ships, and that gap continues to widen every day. Looking at these developments, it's easy to conclude the United States is losing its global grip, simply because these foreign competitors are getting stronger. But external competition only explains a fraction of this geopolitical shift. The unipolar world is definitively fracturing, and the primary catalyst driving that fracture actually originates from right inside the United States. Researchers call this the resonance effect. It occurs where internal decay and external pressure meet and amplify. Think of it as an equation. Foreign capabilities are strictly capped by the domestic core's integrity. You cannot project strength abroad if the foundation crumbles. To audit America's loss of global influence, we must examine the three internal pillars supporting it: the physical health of the population, the distribution of wealth, and the cohesion of its culture. If we want to understand why America is being outcompeted abroad, we have to mathematically trace exactly what is breaking down at home. Since 1965, the ratio of average worker pay to CEO earnings exploded from 24-to-1 to 262-to-1. While wealth concentrated at the top, the American economic footprint shrank, with the U.S. share of world income dropping from 24.6% to 19.1% by 2011. This economic stagnation correlates directly with a national health crisis. Since the 1980s, U.S. life expectancy has been steadily fallen behind peer nations, resulting in an estimated 14.5 million excess deaths compared to other high-income countries. When a population faces extreme disparities in basic wealth and physical survival, the natural byproduct is intense cultural pessimism and fierce political polarization. This combination of physical decline and economic resentment has paralyzed domestic governance. The system has devolved into veto politics, a state of gridlock where the nation is largely incapable of executing unified, long-term action. That severe domestic polarization actively damages America's standing abroad. When foreign policy swings violently between administrations, the United States begins to look like a highly erratic and unreliable ally. Foreign powers have to calculate risk. If an international agreement signed today might be torn up after the next election cycle, allied and unaligned nations alike are forced to hedge their bets. We can see this hedging in action right now. Countries are actively building new financial architectures, like local currency settlement systems, specifically designed to bypass U.S. economic control and reduce their reliance on the dollar. Because America can no longer be trusted to guarantee a stable, predictable global system, its diplomatic leverage is evaporating. A fractured domestic consensus ultimately destroys soft power. Historian Paul Kennedy identified a fatal point in the life cycle of great powers, known as imperial overstretch. This occurs when a nation's military commitments physically outpace its economic capacity to sustain them. To understand this overstretch, look at the 800 U.S. military bases spread across the globe. This creates an allocation trap. Every dollar funneled into vast defense budgets is actively drained from domestic economic investment, infrastructure, and technological innovation. It initiates a downward spiral. Massive spending demands heavier taxes, creates deeper domestic splits, and weakens the exact economic engine required to fund the military. The U.S. is caught in a fatal tug-of-war. The very act of spending astronomical sums to maintain unipolar military dominance is actively accelerating the internal decay of the nation. This leads us to the hegemonic paradox. Projecting strength abroad while a country's foundations crumble creates a structural mismatch. The U.S. is shouldering the weight of an empire without the health, unity, or economic stability to carry it. This shift toward a multipolar power structure is already visible in global trade patterns and the proliferation of non-Western alliances. Maintaining global influence now requires a strategy that looks past simple defense spending and prioritizing internal resilience as the primary engine of national security. If the core rots, global influence inevitably collapses. The ultimate defense strategy for the coming decades is an aggressive, direct investment in the people at home.